Uncle, stop. Please stop. It's paining me. What is going on, she wondered, as she gently moved forward, but what she saw will shock you. The chill of the harmattan wind swept through the village of Obiele as Ifunanya Okeke prepared for the annual family reunion. This year, it was more than just a Christmas gathering. It marked the 95th birthday of their family patriarch Ezeodo Nkemakonam, a celebration expected to draw the entire lineage together. Ifunanya, a single mother of 2 children, Chizaram and Ebube, moved briskly around her small apartment in the bustling city of Enugu. She had spent weeks saving for the journey, determined to make her late mother proud by attending the event. Despite her struggles, she was eager to reconnect with her roots and introduce her children to the extended family. Her cousin Obioma had already called twice that morning, urging her to arrive early. "You know Papa hates lateness," she said, her voice tinged with both excitement and urgency. Ifunanya sighed, smiling. Onyekachi was more than just a cousin. She had been her confidant and protector during their childhood. The ancestral compound of the Okeke family was a grand sight. The red earth compound stretched wide, surrounded by lush palm trees that swayed in the evening breeze. A large canopy had been erected for the festivities, with chairs neatly arranged around a long table filled with steaming pots of egusi, jollof rice, nkwobi, and roasted goat meat. Ifunanya's children ran off to play with other kids, their laughter ringing through the compound. She greeted familiar faces, exchanging hugs and pleasantries, but something felt off. The air carried an undercurrent of tension, masked by forced smiles. Whispers trailed behind her as she walked toward the main house. When she asked her aunt Adaku about it, the older woman's face darkened. "It's nothing," Adaku said, her voice low. "Just the usual squabbles over inheritance. Don't concern yourself with it." But Ifunanya couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lingered beneath the surface. That night, as the moon hung low and full in the sky, the family gathered around a roaring bonfire. Stories of the family's origins were shared, and Ezeodo Nkemakonam's booming laughter filled the air. It was a moment of unity, or so it seemed. As Ifunanya sat beside Onyekachi, he leaned close and whispered, "Did you notice Chimezie wasn't here?" Chimezie, their eldest cousin, was the firstborn grandson and heir to their grandfather's estate. His absence was unusual. "Maybe he's just late," Ifunanya offered. But Onyekachi shook his head. "I heard something strange. They said that he and Nana had a serious fight last week over the will." A shiver ran down Ifunanya's spine. "The will? It hasn't even been read yet." Onyekachi's eyes narrowed. "Exactly. This gist longo. I no go lie for you," Onyekachi said. They both giggled. "Wait! If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell." Now, where were we? Nkiru has the full gist. You know she is the queen of updates. She will return tomorrow, but you know she does not like staying here because of what happened the last time, Onyekachi said calmly. "Well, we'll go meet her at her place. I can't miss out on this gist." "Oh, but my children, that her place is quite far, and cars can barely pass through that route," Ifunanya said sadly. "See this one?" Nkiru smiled. "Have you forgotten our cousin Emmy just built a new mansion and it has enough rooms for everyone? Besides, he is a very nice man. He takes care of children very well, especially young baby girls. I'm just shocked why he's yet to get married. I'm sure Chisaram and Ebube will enjoy their stay there. They can watch TV and play the whole time while we do our thing," Onyekachi said convincingly. Ifunanya nodded in acceptance. She was a fan of gists and barely had time for her children since they visited this place. She had been busy catching up with old relatives and helping to cook the different delicacies for the 3-day occasion. Indeed, the suggestion was a nice one. The next day at Emeka's mansion felt like heaven on earth. The long, luxurious curtains and exotic furniture were a sight to behold. The house was loaded with beverages and expensive appliances. But the highlight of it all was a playground where different toys were kept. That night, Ifunanya slept over and was shocked at how Emmy, her cousin, took keen interest in her children, especially Ebube, her little girl. She woke up in the midnight to find Ebube sleeping in his room. She smiled. What a sweet uncle. Usually, Ebube wouldn't sleep in the dark, but with her uncle, it all felt different. They had already started bonding. The next morning, she set out, waving goodbye to her kids who barely noticed her exit. They were so engrossed with the new lifestyle, a life totally different from the humble life they came from. Little did they know that this paradise would reveal something they never imagined. That night, Uncle Emmy once again told Ebube, "You're sleeping in my room again today." She looked at her brother, who was already fond of sleeping with her in the same room. But she was excited. Uncle Emmy had chocolates in his room, lots of them, and that was enough to convince her. Chizaram, a 7-year-old boy, though clever, had not built the confidence of sleeping alone. "Uncle, can I sleep with you both?" he pleaded. "You are a man now," Emmy interrupted, "and you should start acting like one." Perhaps his uncle was right. His mother had always complained about the way he runs away at the mere sight of cockroaches and always urged him to be strong. Little Chizaram nodded reluctantly as he walked to his own room. Late into the night, Uncle Emmy unleashed the beast he had kept in chains. "Ebube, you know you're a very fine girl," he started, gently undressing her. Ebube laughed, thinking it was the usual Uncle Emmy she knew undressing her so he could change her into her nightwear. But shockingly, he kept staring at her, and that was when she knew something was wrong. "Uncle, what are you doing? Mommy said I should not allow anybody touch me there." She gazed anxiously. "Don't worry, it won't be painful. There's an evil spirit inside you, and I need to remove it. If not, you will die and go to hell. But after I remove the evil spirit, you must promise not to tell anybody, not even your mother. If you do, the evil spirit will come and attack you, and whoever it is you tell, and all of you will go to hell. Do you want that?" he asked, with a smirk on his face. "No," she responded in fear. Uncle Emmy's ungodly touches and caresses turned into something more intense, and the pain was becoming unbearable for the little girl. "Uncle, stop! It's paining me!" she cried out. But Uncle Emmy was way too engrossed to listen. He held her tiny hands down firmly while forcing a cloth on her mouth to keep her mouth shut while he forced himself on the poor girl. Her innocent cries, though touching, did nothing to stop him until he had his fill. Ebube cried out in pain, but Emmy silenced her. He threatened that if she didn't stop crying, the evil spirit which he had just removed from her body would come back and send her entire family to hell, and that includes her. Ebube held back her tears. Her fear for the demon coming after her beloved brother and mother dazed her. Shortly after, Emmy handed her some chocolates. "Take this, my dear." He handed her some chocolates. As she ate and swallowed the chocolates in chunks, she lay on the bed in deep pain. But she didn't dare cry aloud or tell anyone because of the fearful story her uncle had instilled in her. Meanwhile, Ifunanya was busy catching up with her cousins. They gisted all night and still had a lot to talk about. Like the ticking of a clock, 3 days had already passed, and the celebrations were over. Ifunanya came to pay her children a visit, and was shocked that they already had new clothes. Emmy had gone shopping for them the day before. In just 3 days, her children now looked entirely different. Emmy dollars, you have really transformed my children. I'm really grateful. The least I can do. He nodded. He insisted they stay a few days more, and she happily agreed. Iruka, her sworn enemy, was just sent out of her husband's house, and she needed to hear the full gist. Once again, she set out. Little did she know her children were in the lion's den that night. The usual cries from Uncle Emmy's room woke Chizaram up. He crept slowly, and this time, the door wasn't locked. To his surprise, it was his sister crying bitterly. Uncle, please, I'm begging you. It's paining me. Tears streaming down her face. But her uncle didn't stop. Instead, he said, it's paining you because this evil spirit is very stubborn. Don't worry, we'll leave you soon. Chizaram, though he was young, knew something wasn't right. He rushed and tried to stop his uncle, but instead he locked him in the toilet and continued his evil mission. 2 days later, Ifunanya came to pick up her children. She arrived late and was urged to sleep over. She noticed something odd about Ebube. She was now always in solitude, like her. She looked disturbed despite the paradise she was in. But despite Ifunanya's persuasive attempts to find out what was wrong, all proved abortive. Hours later, while Emmy and Ifunanya were alone, he complained bitterly about Chizaram's behavior. He insults me like I am his mate. He doesn't do anything, just play, and even beats up his sister sometimes. He accused Ifunanya understood that Chizaram and Ebube were always at loggerheads, but beating her up was out of it. What's more, insulting his uncle felt like a shock to her. Mommy, I only told him to stop hurting Ebube. He cried bitterly as she whipped him, shutting him up before he could say any more words. Just like every other night, Emmy carried Ebube to his row,
perhaps for his final exploitation, but little did he know that his sins would catch up with him. Earlier that day, Chizaram stole the spare key to Uncle Hemi's room and kept it safe for his plans. By past midnight, the speakers in Emmy's room were raised to the highest, covering Ebube's loud cries. It was the usual, "Uncle, please, I can't control the pain. It's paining me. Please stop. I want to show you something." Chizaram led his mother straight to Uncle Emmy's door. At first, she was upset, but before she could say a word, he unlocked the door and boom! She could not believe her eyes. Her trusted cousin was forcing himself on her innocent daughter who was bleeding and crying her eyes out. "Emmy dollars!" she shouted. He immediately stopped as he struggled to bring his penis out of her tender, private part. It's not what you think," he said shamefully. How could her family member, her own blood, do something unthinkable to her innocent child? Her whole world came crumbling before her eyes. She immediately snatched her daughter and took to her heels, while Chizaram followed along with his tiny legs. Emmy tried to stop them, but his guilt slowed his pace. They ran into a neighbor's apartment. The neighbor accommodated them, and together they interrogated Ebube. They urged her to talk, and she eventually opened up, revealing how Uncle Emmy had been touching her inappropriately. She admitted that she was scared that the evil spirit would come after her mother and brother. During the emotional investigation, Ifunanya broke down in tears. "Mommy, he touched me here," she said, pointing to her crotch. "It was painful. I told him to stop, but he never did. He said there is an evil spirit inside my body and that he wanted to save me by removing it. He said that if I told anybody, you, Chizaram, and me would go to hell." Ifunanya cried uncomfortably. If only she had paid more attention to her children. She was so engrossed with the celebration and gossip that she neglected what really mattered the most in her life. Her children. She cursed the day she took her children to Hemi's house. How could she have trusted him so much? a distant cousin she hadn't seen in years. She wished she had educated her children much earlier about their body parts, especially little Ebube. She wept bitterly for her daughter's future and mental health. Emmy Dollars was eventually arrested and thrown into prison, while Ifunanya and her children returned home with her family to start a new life. She spent most of her time educating her children, and never again did she entrust her children into the hands of anyone, not even family members. This shocking story teaches us that you should never completely trust anyone with your children. Parents should always pay attention to their children, listen to them, and start teaching them all they need to know about their body parts, as well as other things that will help them not to fall victims to people like Emmy Dollars.